Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Buddy Lindsay and I'm glad you're here today because we're going to talk about building a solar powered light for my portable chicken coop or my chickshaw. Just like a lot of people right now, I need more eggs, but they are super expensive and they are getting more expensive, and I have a double whammy of my own chickens aren't even laying right now. So I've been told a lot just to add a light so that you can get 14 to 16 hours of light into your chickens. So let's build a solar powered light for my chicken coop and see if it helps. First thing to start off with is to get the plastic ammo can and the battery measured for a board I want to use as the place to mount all the components to. Basically just measure the width, height, and the depth of the container with the battery on the side. I went with the standing up on end, similar to what Premier One does in their energizers. This opens up space and helps keep everything compact. For the wiring portion of this, I am not really going to go into detail of all the wiring because depending on the timer you have, it will vary on how it is set up. Most timers come with a wiring diagram, so make sure to follow that. Instead, I want to go through what I did and why for the decisions on this project. First, the project cost me around $170 all in. Some of that was because I bought extras so I could have stuff for future projects, so you can probably get by with a little bit cheaper, especially if you research and waiting for sales. I kind of need to get this done quickly-ish, so I didn't wait. The components I used are 2 bus bars, a 12 amp hour battery, 1 watt trickle charger solar panel combo, 16 gauge wire, spade connectors, a JVR timer, and an Ampere 12 volt LED light bar. The entire system is a 12 volt because I didn't want to deal with changing voltage or getting an inverter to convert from DC to AC. I wanted everything to just work. I especially wanted everything to just work because this is the first foray into doing solar projects at all, and I wanted to get it right. I'll get back to the solar panel here in a bit, so let's just talk about the board and what all goes on it. First, I have 2 bus bars for positive and negative. I wanted to use them so that I could keep everything secure and easily laid out. I especially didn't want to do this with wiring nuts and twisting everything together, as I feel that would have been really confusing, so the bus bars make life a lot easier and keep things organized. First thing I wired up was the cable that goes directly to the solar panel, and that is closest to the camera. My concept was for doing things in a flow. Basically start with the solar panel, the electricity flows from there into the battery. So the next thing is on the bus bar, it'd be custom wire I created for the spade connectors to go into the battery. I just want to do a quick note on the battery. I went with a 12 amp hour battery because the light consumes about 0.8 amps. So to run for 3 hours, it would use 2.4 amp hours of usage. And I thought about going with a 6 amp hour battery to give me a couple of days. However, for safety and not much more money, I went ahead and went with the 12 amp hour battery, and this should give me a couple of days easy. I know the real world is going to work out differently. It doesn't usually work out like math does, so this gives me some buffer as well, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, back to the flow. I wanted the electricity to flow a specific way. The idea is that it flows from the battery to the timer once it flows from the solar panel to the battery and then to the timer. So the next set of wires was wired up for what was needed for the timer. For the case of my timer, I have a negative wire with a spade connector that will hook up later part of the bus bar, and then I run everything else to the timer. Coming out of the timer is the positive cable with a spade connector. This means the positive of the light will connect to the timer and the negative will connect to the bus bar. I also waited until I got out to the coop before making a custom cable to go from the timer to the light in the control box because I didn't know what the length would be that I would need. Now, I know electricity doesn't flow like I've described, but once it hits the bus bar, it just kind of goes everywhere. However, I wanted something mentally to follow for the wiring it up. And again, I wanted to stress, this is my first solar project, so this is just how I mentally was processing things to try to keep it going. A couple of final notes on the wiring is to just take your time. I spent a lot of time staring at the diagram that comes with it and double checking all of my connections. There were many times where I just re-walked through the connections 2 or 3 times just to make sure everything was right. I spent a couple of hours wiring everything up. As you might have seen, one of the things that I did was I marked down the numbers of the connections on the device to correspond with the diagram. This helped keep things visually easier, but also because the wiring on the diagram was with the timer pointing down, and I was having the timer pointed up. So it kind of made things a little bit confusing. One final thing I did end up doing was soldering the spade connectors to the wires for the lights, because the wires are pretty thin, and I wanted to make extra sure that the lights, stayed with the spade connectors for everything to just be able to plug in easily. Now getting to the solar panel, it is really a trickle charger. It's a 1-watt charger with an MPPT charge controller built in, so you don't got to worry about a charge controller at all, kind of as an extra third-party thing. You just wire in the cable to connect to whatever it is that you're going to do, and you're good to go. The charge controller takes over, and basically it's fairly plug-and-play solar panel. Setup was easy, as it just takes a base bracket with a little black rubber swivel thing on it, and you just mount that to whatever. In my case, off camera, I mounted it to the top of the chickshaw. Then you take the bracket and put it onto the back of the solar panel itself, and you're basically done with setup of the panel, because from there you just mount that bracket to that rubber swivel thing that we just talked about. I originally wanted to mount the flat. I originally wanted to mount it flat to the top of the chickshaw, but I realized it probably wasn't a good idea, as I turned the chickshaw in various different directions as I moved around the property, and I should really take that extra few seconds to make sure I have it really pointed very well based on the time of the season and where the sun is going to be. Besides, I think it looks a little cooler because it's like, hey, there's electricity going to this chickshaw. The next couple of steps are easy and straightforward. Basically, you just connect the light to the coop wherever you want to put it, and in my case, I wanted it to be closer to the back of the coop where the chickens sleep. After that, put the control box in and feed the wires into it from the solar panel down into the box and hook up the connector. I also drilled a couple of holes off camera in the side of the case so that I could actually shut and close the case so that it's waterproof and chicken proof as well. There's really nothing fancy. I didn't do like any grommets or anything in there to help further keep out water, other than just the fact that it's in a elements protected area. Once the wires are fed in, I was ready to measure out roughly how long the wire was to create and to connect it to the control box, and then I just added the spade connectors for it to hook up. Once everything was hooked up, the light was able to come on, since I went ahead and changed the timer over to manual mode, and we have success. Again, your timer may vary on how you actually hook it up, but if you buy the timer I have in the description, you might want to go ahead and look at how I program it here, because the instructions are a little bit funky. First, you hit the CR button 4 times to put it in edit mode, and then you just let off of it for about 30 seconds and it goes back into locked mode. Once you're in edit mode, you hit the P button for program to go into the timer settings that you want. There are 16 settings possible with an on and off for each. So you just hit the program button to cycle through. In our case, we want 1 on, then we just hit the hour and the minute button to get to the desired time. After that, we hit the program again to get the 1 off setting. Then you cycle through just like the rest. You do 2 on and 2 off and 3 on and 3 off, etc., 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 and set all the programs you want. Then just stop hitting buttons and it will lock itself in about 30 seconds. So with the timer set, the solar panel is mounted, the cables are connected, and we just need to close everything up so the chickens can get some early morning light. Overall, this project was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I'm hoping it works out to help increase the egg production from the chickens. We will see. You can see the show notes for more information on this project and maybe a list of things to buy. And hopefully I'll see you next time in the next video. And in the meantime, happy DIYing.